there, my fans. I'm back with the Vegas Baby Show starring Lynn. Hey, that's me. Show number 12. I got a lot of positive feedback from yesterday's special guest. It was fun, wasn't it? He's a little shorter than I thought. I thought he was a taller man, but whatever. So today will be a story and hopefully a song. If I talk fast enough, I put a song that has to do with the story into it. A partial song. I'm not going to sing it all. So, this story is from 2004. My father had passed away in 2003. And about a month after or so after he had passed away, my sister, my brother in law, Bill, and I were sitting around a campfire, not a campfire, a fire in my sister's backyard that we did frequently while the kids were doing whatever. And we were talking about my dad and my mom, who my mom had passed away in 1994, so they were both gone. And we started talking about how they loved to do trips out west. When they were first married, they went several times to Colorado by themselves, and then as we got older, my two brothers and me, my sister was well after. So we used to go to. They would drive us to um, Colorado and Arizona, and so we were talking about that, and we have some pictures that we looked at from my parents when they were young and they lived that. So we just got to thinking, and we had all inherited a little money, not a lot, but a little bit. And I don't know, we just started talking, and all of a sudden we decided, let's take our kids on that kind of a trip. There was three of them. There's my sister has two. She has a son who was 16 at the time, and her daughter. Oh, I don't know how old the daughter Jackie was. Darren was 16. Jackie was, I don't know, maybe 10. And Michael, my son, was 15. So we got to talking, the four of us, and which, by the way, the seven of us, the four of them, my sister, her husband, their two kids, me, Bill, and Michael, we took a ton of vacations together. We went to Mexico 3 different times, places around the country, to all inclusives. We went to Disney World, and then we did this trip. So what we did was we planned it. So what we were going to do is it was a 10-day trip, and we were going to our goal was to end up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so what we did was we flew to Denver, the seven of us, and then we rented a Suburban with all our luggage, and 7 people. We piled it into the Suburban. And it's important to know that the kids were 16 and 17, because at that age, especially boys, although you know what, my sister's son Darren, he was not a problem, so we're going to leave him out. My son was at the age where he was a big pain in the ass. So we all piled in, and what we were going to do was, instead of driving from Denver all the way to Wyoming with the kids, we're like, no, to Jackson Hole, we're like, no, Wyoming. I always say it wrong. And so what we had planned out, what we were going to do was we were going to drive halfway, so it was 6 hours. We were in the car, no, 5 hours. And we got to this small town, which I wish I could remember the name of it, but I can't. So that was our stopping point. And then the next day, we'd get back in the car, and it was going to be less than 4 to get to Jackson Hole. So we figured, you can't keep the kids, it's hard to keep them occupied and happy, in a Suburban with tons of luggage on top of the car and in the car and 7 people. You can imagine we were in there like sardines. And my son was being a butt. He was 15. He couldn't help it. He admits it. So this is not something new. So, that was a little rough. But so we're driving, and we got to our halfway point. We get out to this really small town. I mean, really small. And there was only one hotel in town. That's where we were staying. We had they were so old, they only had rotary phones. Remember those? When we got into our room, my son's, what's that? I go, it's a telephone. He's like, how does that work? So I showed him. And so we went to later that day where we were like, anything to do in this town? And they're like, well, there's this old prison that had been closed down, and that was really weird. There were some weird ass stories when we went to do that tour. It was so creepy. At one point, my husband Bill, whenever we went where he would have to walk long distances, we would put him in a wheelchair because he would walk with two canes because of all his, his body had just been beat to shit. And so he was in his wheelchair, and he said to me, I was pushing him through the tour. It was just us. And he's like, this place is creeping me out. I said, I know. So we got out of there, and the rest of them toured it. The rest of the five of them, but it was such a creepy place. And the stories they were telling us, like back in the 50s and 60s, they didn't even have hot water for their prisoners. They had to take cold showers all the time. And then there was still some pictures on the wall, and they say sometimes people say the eyes follow you. And then they've said that people have taken pictures. They let you go in one of the cells and you can take a picture. Kids like to do that. People say they see like spirits in the pictures. And I was feeling it. My husband was too. So we got the hell out of there. So that's over, we went back to the hotel, and we were sitting, and it was chilly there too, and it was probably in the 60s, and it was during the summer. It was August, I think we went, July or August, and so we were sitting there, and there was like a little cafe in the hotel, and we were having some beers, and it looked out to the pool. Well, the kids said, we want to play some. So they were in their room playing. They were in the room playing some cards. And we're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Just behave, we'll just be right down here in the restaurant, chilling. And all of a sudden, the three of them come out, and they're out by the pool, and we're like, what are they doing? And now the pool was freezing, and they didn't warn it. And it was ice cold. And we're sitting there, what are they doing? And then I look over, my niece is in part of my bathing suit, and she's 10. I'm like, what is she doing in my bathing suit? And all of a sudden, she starts singing, because the windows were open so we could see and hear, to the restaurant, I'm a little teapot, dun, dun, dun. And she had to act it out and sing it in front of the whole restaurant. People were in the restaurant. It was hilarious. And I'm like, what is she doing in my bathing suit? So, and then my son, he had to jump in the pool. So apparently, whoever lost at cards, which was not Darren, because he didn't have to do anything. He just sat there and laughed his ass off. Jackie had to sing I'm a Little Teapot with part of my bathing suit on in front of the restaurant, and Michael had to jump into the freezing cold weather. So that was pretty funny. I obviously had to see it, but Jackie and she had to do Darren, her brother, made her do it. It was pretty darn funny. So the next day, load up the Suburban, and we're headed to Jackson Hole. And we were going to stay there so many days. I forget, like 3 days. And, go to the Grand Tetons. We were going to go to the National Park. We were going to go see the geysers and Old Faithful. And then we were going to come back on our way back to Denver. And we were going to stop in Hot Springs. That's one Hot Springs and stuff. So that was the plan. So we're driving, and we're getting close, and Jackson Hole is really close. So we're pulling up right before the town, and there's, mountains and hills everywhere. And we pulled over to just look, and it was gorgeous. And the kids, Darren and Michael, my son, jump out. And my son has a movie camera. He's a little movie camera, which he never let go of that whole trip. And by the way, to this date, none of us have seen that movie. I don't know what my son did with it, but we've never seen it. So you know what I'm talking about, Michael. So we get out of the car, and at this point, Michael's hair is long. Actually, it's long like it is now. Back in high school, I let him grow it long because it was always short before that. And so it was long. It was about here. And he had really thick hair like I did when I was young, and it was curly. Well, between my hair, which is naturally curly, doesn't look like it, but it is, and my husband's curly hair, his hair was real thick and curly. So they start running up this mountain hill, and they are like way up there. You can almost, now they're like little beings, and I'm getting really freaked out. Darren is over on one side and Michael's on the other side. They're walking, and I'm like, they're getting a little high, and we're yelling at them, come on. And all of a sudden, Michael slips. And we're like, and we hear, ouch. And I'm like, oh my God. And we're looking, and Michael's just kind of laying there. And I'm like, Darren, get over there and get your cousin. So My we see him and they're talking up there, and we and he's like, I gotta get my camera, I gotta get my camera. And Darren's like, all right, all right. So then Darren gets his camera off of wherever he had put it, and they slowly make their way down. My heart is was pounding. I'm like, oh my god, we haven't even made it to Jackson Hole yet, and my son's gonna kill himself, he's gonna die. So he gets down and he's like, I said, what happened? And he said, I slipped and fell and I hit my head. So now, and if you know heads, they bleed a lot. So I look under all that hair and it's bleeding. I mean, really bleeding. I'm like, great. We haven't even started the trip officially, and well, you're already hurt. So we're like, dang it. So we pull into town, and there was a Walgreens, I think, and we went in there, and they're like, well, I said, do you have any ointment? I told him what happened. I said, I don't think he needs stitches. And the guy's like, okay. And he's looking at him, the pharmacist. And we wanted to get, what do you call them, those butterflies where it pinches it to stop it from bleeding, but it's a head. And there's this massive mop of hair on his head. So it's blood and hair. It was just a mess. And we hadn't even checked in our hotel yet. So I'm already freaking out. I'm like, you know. So we get that taken care of. He gets a band-aid on whatever he could do, but basically decided just keep it clean and keep putting the ointment on it. He lived, obviously. So we get to the hotel, get checked in. We're like, yeah, this is awesome. Beautiful, cute little town. Jackson Hole, if you've ever been in there, it's great. And so the one day, the kids were going to go with my brother-in-law, Tom, horseback riding and up into the mountains, which they did. And then we had already scheduled, while we were in Illinois, we had scheduled the next day we were going to do a white water rafting trip, all of us. Well, my sister hurt her back before the trip and was in tremendous amount of pain, so there was no way she could go on a whitewater trip. So her and I stayed back because we did one of her favorite things, shopping in the town. But to say how cool this company was, I had called them before we got out there, and I said, "Listen, my family and I want to do this whitewater trip which by the way, I know it's going to piss a lot of people off, but the Bill Clinton and Hillary did this exact trip that we were doing, and they were telling me about it. I'm like, oh wow, cool, and I explained that my husband wants to go on this trip. I said, but he's handicapped. He walks with two canes. His arms and legs couldn't extend out like this. They were stuck like this. It's a very long story. We'll get into that later. Other shows. So it was very difficult for him. And the guy's like, ma'am, I explained everything. He goes, I promise you, we will get your husband in that boat, in the raft, and he will be fine. I'm like, okay. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, just come about 15 minutes earlier and we'll take care of it. So we all drove down there and I dropped him off and I went in and talked to the owner and said, I'm the one that called. And they came out, looked at my husband. They were so kind. They took such good care of him and they said, we have everything rigged up for him. So several people got him into the raft and they had him in the back and they had it all rigged up for him. It was just so awesome. It was so nice. So Jackie, Darren, Tom, Bill, and Michael all went on the white rafting trip and they just had a blast. We have a picture of Michael sitting in front and they had a really, really good time. So Kathy and I stayed back and shopped. So so then it was like, okay, so now we're like, let's go, we're going to see the geysers. We went and saw the geysers, and the kids wanted to see a bear, moose. They wanted to see it, so we were going to drive around until we seen it. So well, first we were walking through the national park where all the geysers are and Old Faithful. So I was pushing Bill in the wheelchair. So this is really funny. So at the end of the day, well, at the end of the time we were there, we weren't even thinking suntan lotion. Duh. And so Bill kind of burnt the front of his legs. And because I was pushing him in the wheelchair, the back of my legs were burnt. So it was pretty funny. So we're walking back to the car after we'd seen the geysers. We walked around, saw the geysers, saw Old Faithful go. There's a moose walking. Now, they tell you not to touch them, not to go near them, because they can run fast. So he's just slumbering around. And he's slumbering around. And all of a sudden, was it a moose or was it I'm pretty sure it was a moose. I know it wasn't a bear. And so he slumbers. So my son's Michael's like, oh, I'm gonna go up and touch him and run. I'm like, no. So Michael starts walking up to him, and the moose turns around, and he's kind of eyeing Mike. And I'm like, you look like an appetizer for him, Mike, because Mike was still little. He hadn't really had his growing spurt yet, so he wasn't really any taller than me. He's probably 5'2", 5'3", maybe. And I'm like, he is little. He was kind of going when he saw Michael licking his lips, and he turned around and he started coming for us. So we just ran. We're like, shit, we're running. And that was funny. So then we drove through the Grand Tetons. Spectacular. If you have not, I would go there. It was, oh my God. This is one of my favorite vacations, even though it was very stressful at times. But Tom, I felt bad for him because he couldn't see because he was driving a lot, so he didn't get to see a lot. But so then we would stop and pull over and look. And my son, he would stand right at the edge of the mountain and be like looking and Mom, and I'd be like, why'd you cut it out? He kept doing that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's gonna slip and fall and die. He was doing that all the time to me. Thank God there was somebody up there. His grandparents were up there making sure. They were probably like, nope, get back. Because he kept tormenting me every stop. I'm looking, and I'm like, would you get over here? I told him at one point, I said, I'm going to rip your arm off and beat you with it if you don't cut it out. So we were driving around, and the kids are like, we got to see a bear. We got to see a bear. So finally we see a bunch of cars up ahead, and they're all pulled over, and we're like, I bet there's a bear. Sure enough, there was a bear walking around on the side. So a bunch of us get out of the Suburban, and I said to Bill, don't you move. Because you cannot run, you cannot walk fast. You stay in this car. So we're out there, and Michael has his movie camera going, and he got really close, and the bear was like looking right at us. It was fun, but we were all really scared. We're all like, but this is cool, but I'm scared. It was pretty funny. So we saw the bear. We had seen a moose. Uh-oh, here comes Elvis. He's going to try to steal my thunder. There you go. Dun, 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 dun. See the tail? Hey, bud. And so that was fun. So we did that. And the Grand Tetons are just spectacular. I can't even tell you. So we ended up deciding that we wanted to stay there longer and do more stuff. So we ended up blowing off what we were going to do to the hot springs, and we ended up asking the cottages or the home motel we were staying at if we could stay longer, and they said yes. And then they were like, oh, that's right, it was July, because they're like, oh, you're going to be here for our spectacular July 4th fireworks. And we're like, so we heard about these fireworks all over town. So we're like, oh, wow, this is great. And they're telling us where to go because there's not a lot of people. It's a small town. So we're like, great. And they're like, we spent over $1 million on these fireworks this year. We are pumped. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, the night of 4th of July, just as it was getting dark, the sky opened up. And I've seen, because we live in Illinois, and we see some heavy rain and storms. Not like this. I mean, it was insane. It was almost like you could touch the thunder. It was so close. Do you know what I mean? We're standing, there's a roof over the balcony of the motel, and we're standing there watching. It was so cool. And my son and then it starts hailing. Really big hail balls. And my son and nephew are like, Mom, Dad, you got to come over and see this. So we go by. There's a car down the ways. The top was down. So it was filling up. It was literally filling up with hail balls. It was hilarious. And we're like, oh, well, not our problem. So the fireworks were canceled. And they're like, well, they're going to be tomorrow night. We're like, cool, well, we're staying. Again, you and the people in the hotel are like, wait till you see these fireworks. Excuse me, allergies. I walked today, that's why. So we're sitting there, we're getting all ready, we're getting our seats, and everyone's like, oh yeah, they're going to go up right here. They're going to be spectacular. Got some cocktails, the kids are finally calmed down, and the fireworks show starts. And it's going, and we're like looking at each other, and we're like, God, when's it going to get really going? And like 20 minutes later, it was over. And the 7 of us, it was so funny. The 7 of us literally looked at each other, and we're like, they got ripped off, man. Lake Villa had better fireworks show in the little town I lived in Illinois that Jackson Hole had. and they spent $1 million, they saw them a coming. That's all I'm saying. And people came up to us and like, oh, weren't they spectacular? And we're like, yeah. Oh yeah, I've never seen anything like that before. And we're all looking at each other like, woo doo 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 doo. It was pretty funny. They were bad. They were really bad. I don't know what happened, but I mean, I think the finale was like poof poof. That was it. So then I got to speed this up. So then we're on our way back to Denver, and we stayed there 2 days because Bill's brother lived there and he had his family. So we were at a hotel by their house, and we're like, "Come over, you can hang out in the pool with us." And they're like, they had an indoor pool, so that was fun. And there wasn't anybody in the hotel, so we were in the pool enjoying it, and there were some other people in there, not many. There was like maybe 3 people. It was a family. So my husband, I wheeled him down there in the wheelchair to the pool. It was pretty far away, so I put him in the wheelchair, wheeled him down, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to go in." So I helped him out of the wheelchair, and it was closer to the edge, but not super close. I didn't realize there was a little bit of a hill in this pool. So I'm helping Bill get on the stairs to get into the pool. He's leaning on me. All of a sudden, somebody yells, my brother-in-law yells, "The wheelchair's moving!" And I look and I'm like, "Oh no!" And then we're all looking, and the wheelchair's and falls into the pool and slowly sinks to the bottom. And we're all like, "Oh my god!" Well, the people that were in the pool with us got out so fast and left. I'm thinking, what the hell is their problem? It's not like Bill was in the wheelchair. I mean, I could have left him in there, but I didn't. It was so funny. Now we're like, oh, great. Did you ever try to pull a wheelchair out of a pool that when the wheelchair is full of water? Not so easy. Finally got it out, and now we have to like turn it upside down and let it sit and drain, and that took quite a while. But we were laughing. So that night, we decided, the kids are like, we were like, "Oh, let's go out to dinner." And they're like, "No, we don't want to go. We just want to stay back in the room." Now they're 16, 15, and 10. So, and there really wasn't anybody in the hotel. So we got them some takeout. And then we're like, it would be nice to kind of have a night a couple hours to ourselves. Remember, 10 days, 7 of us in a Suburban. Yeah. So they're like, we went to the hotel desk and said, "Listen, our kids are," and they're like, "No problem, we'll keep an eye on them." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And so we went out to dinner, and we were having some cocktails, the 4 of us, and we were feeling pretty good. It must have been the altitude because we hadn't had that many cocktails, but we were feeling pretty good. And we were just falling in love with Denver and the whole trip. And then we're talking to people next to us, and they were telling us they had lived in Illinois and moved to Denver. They said it's this, I guess it is the sunniest state, right? I've heard that, although I don't know, Vegas is sunny too all the time. But they're telling us, they're like, "It's actually so sunny, you're going to get sick of it." And we're like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And they were like, "Oh, this is not." By the end of the dinner and drinks, we were moving, the 4 of us, to Denver. It was really pretty funny. But it's alcohol talking. It was pretty funny because we're like, "Well," my sister's like, I got this really good job and blah, 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 blah. But me, Tom, and Bill, we were moving to Denver. So we get back to the hotel, and we see my nephew now, Darren, and he's in the wheelchair. Now there's 4 wheels, the two in front, the small ones, and the big ones in the back, right? He's in the wheelchair. The chair is lifted all the way back, and it's on the side 2 wheels. And he's, do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't have the wheelchair all the way down. So he's leaning way back, and he's moving down the hallway. They were having contests from our room to see who could get all the way to the front desk without stopping and having to fall down on 4 wheels instead of 2. Darren won. We happened to walk in when they were doing it, and they're like, the owners, the people of the hotel are like, "Oh, they've been playing around. It's okay." That was pretty hilarious. We're like, "Oh, great. Our kids are going up and down the hallway in a wheelchair." So that was a lot of fun. The trip was really, really good. There was a few other things, but um, it was one of my favorite because it was really beautiful. But Michael, my son, 15, he was a butt, a big butt. Anytime he could poke the bear, meaning me, he did. He was at that age. And he was just, I mean, seriously, there was a few times when we got in the hotel the one time when we were in that small hotel between Denver and Jackson Hole. I ripped him a new one. And my family, my sister and her family were in the next room laughing. They're like, "Oh my God, she's gonna kill him." I was just so mad at him because he was just poking the bear. He was being a 15-year-old. Now we laugh about it because he says, "Yeah, I was a jerk. I was a real jerk," and he wants to go back to enjoy the trip that he really didn't enjoy because he was being such a jerk. And but it's beautiful there. I'm telling you, go there. I said I could, if it didn't snow, I could live in Jackson Hole, but it snows. Um, so we ended up making it back. We did. Oh, we did blow off a toll. So when we got back, there was like $100 fine in the mail from my brother-in-law, which wasn't cool. We're like, shit. But we had a super great time. It's one of those things that you're always gonna remember. I don't know. Telling the story, I thought it was funnier than I'm trying than now, and I'm like, maybe not so funny, but it was. It was a good story. And so to go along with that story, you gotta have a song, that's going to you know, be like, you know, mountains, hills. Okay, so what do you think? The hills are alive with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills fill my heart with the sound of music. My heart wants to sing every song it hears. Climb every mountain you see. The hills are alive with the sound of Lenny singing her songs all through the days and nights. My heart fills with love when I come to you through YouTube, and you'll smile the whole day through. What do you think? I know, right? So, that's the end of this show. It's kind of hard to follow up the Elvis show, so just enjoy them. Not every show is going to be spectacular. You just gotta sit back and relax because it's just going to be 15 minutes, 20 minutes of me rambling in a song and a joke. So, and then my message, and you know what my message is? Smile today, tomorrow, before my next show. Say hi to somebody you've never met. Bring a smile to their face. Help somebody out if you're out and about and they need some help. Have a nice conversation. I had a conversation yesterday with a lady in the store. She looked at me, a little older than me, and she said, we're in the cat aisle. If you have a cat, you know how treacherous that is with trying to find what they like. She goes, does your cat like food one day and hate it the next? And I looked at her and I said, hell yeah. He's been going through that. So her and I were laughing about it, and then we were helping each other. I was pointing at some food and stuff, but it was just nice. And she said to me, you're a nice young lady. Thank you. And I'm thinking, well, honey, I ain't that young. I'm probably just a few years younger than you. And I told her, I said, shit, I live on a fixed income. I keep telling my cat Elvis, I'm not throwing food away anymore. You eat it or you don't. So anyways, back to the message. Smile, be happy, and let's love one another again, okay? I'm hoping that my shows encourage you to go out and do that. Okay, guys? So until the next Vegas Baby show starring Malin, I'll see you then. Sayonara.